Hi, welcome to Your Time with Volk, me. Now, before I get on to the first topic, let me explain to you how all this came to be. It all started one afternoon while I was playing an RPG with friends, and one of them shared a music video in which the word elf was used, and as is very common for me when I hear a word that I don't think most other people really know the exact definition of, I might, chuckle and laugh while thoughts that relate to that go through my head. And, well, I chuckled, and one of my friends questioned me, asking me why. So I told him what the word elf meant. It was originally used in Norse mythology, referring to a race of otherworldly creatures that were usually, most often, mischievous. And so that's what the word elf became to be known for, mischievous. And we all, had our laugh as the conversation about that kind of went on, and one of my friends uttered the phrase, "Your time with Volk." And I'm like, hey, I should make a YouTube show with that name. So here I am, on my show. And hey, I hope you all enjoy it. So the first topic I want to talk about is the word judgment. First, I'm going to talk about what it is. Then I'm going to start talking about how they're made. Then I'm going to jump into where they take place. And then how they affect the people who form judgments. And finally, what they do to everyone else. I hope it is very enlightening to all of you. Okay, so for the first part, what is judgment? A judgment is an opinion that has been formed and accepted as a general truth as it applies to the person's understanding of whatever the opinion is being formed on. The literal definition from Merriam-Webster says, the process of forming an opinion or evaluation by discerning and comparing. Now, when you really think about what the explanation of what judgment is, it kind of moves into how they're made, doesn't it, when it talks about discerning or comparing, where discerning is the coming to know or recognize a subject mentally, where comparing would be looking at a subject and deciding how similar or different it is to another subject. But I'm going to use a different example. We'll use a courtroom, since that actually is the best way, as a judge is making a judgment, which is a legal opinion. But in this instance, the judge is going to represent the part of your brain that deals with decision making. The jury is going to represent the part of your brain that deals with information processing. The lawyers are going to represent your internal dialogue of pros and cons, as it has a defense and a prosecution. The defendant is going to be the subject that the opinion is being formed on. The witnesses are going to represent the past experiences, and the expert witnesses are going to represent the future possibilities and outside forces that are attempting to influence your position or opinion. So the first thing that happens in the courtroom is the defendant is brought in, and then everyone's told why he's there, and the judge and the jury both stare at the defendant and stare, and they take in the visual information. Now, a lot of people stop there, a lot of people, and form their judgment, and they really shouldn't. So I'm going to explain what happens when you don't. You see, the lawyers will come into play. They provide their opening statements, they bring in witnesses, the defense questions the witnesses, the prosecution questions the witnesses, and when all the questioning is done, they both give their final arguments to try and sway the jury. The jury is then dismissed, and they all convene to go over all the arguments and information, and with much time and deliberation, they come to a conclusion. And then they bring that conclusion to the judge, who then makes his judgment. And so that is how they're formed. And it also kind of explains where they're formed. In your brain, in that courtroom I talked about, right? But that's mostly only with people who understand that personal objectivity is very important in everyday life. But today it seems like the majority of people allow the opinions of others to overtake their own. And that's a bad thing, because that's mostly done through, emotions. And as it's said a lot, think with your heart. I say don't. You gotta think with your brain. You feel with your heart. Now, feeling bad about something doesn't necessarily mean that you've done bad. because there's what's going on now, and then there's how that's going to affect somebody in the future. And struggle now can very easily mean a better future for that person. So sometimes you got to do things that make you feel bad, and that's the only way you're doing good. And it's good to understand that. But most people don't. You see, I've heard the saying, and a lot of us have heard the saying, but I'm going to change one word. The road to ruin is paved with good intentions. And that is absolutely true. Because good intentions can create weak and lazy people, which creates ruin. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that. Now, I'll also take this opportunity to say that I wouldn't trust the opinions of a teacher who does not encourage you to learn and form your own opinion. And it seems to me that there are more and more of these teachers coming up. I mean, see, you got to learn that respect does not mean that you have to believe every word someone says and refrain from questioning their conclusions. Because if they expect that, then they don't respect you. They're wanting you to be a slave mind, is what I call it. They just want you to believe them no matter what. And that means they don't respect you. And you have to respect yourself more than you respect anyone else. In my opinion, that's what it is to have a high self-esteem. And also, something that's very important to learn is that when someone gives you something, most of the time, well, no, always, they always want something back. When a family member gives you something, most of the time, they just want appreciation. When a friend gives you something, most of the time, they just want appreciation. When a teacher gives you an education, most often, they just want you to give them the satisfaction of knowing that you learned something. That's just a long way of saying appreciation, by the way. When an employer gives you money, most often, they just want you to give them the service they are paying you for. When a police officer gives you a warning, they just want you to follow the law. When someone provides you with a service, they want you to give them money. But when the government gives you anything, they want you to give them more authority. So, how do judgments affect those who make them? Well, it certainly won't condemn them to hell, and it won't bring on negative karmic reaction. On the contrary, when you try a new food and it makes you sick, you judge that food to be a bad food, something to not eat. So, in the future, you avoid it. When you're judging people, you're either making friends or a list of people you wish to avoid. You see behaviors you don't like, so you judge them to be stupid or bad in any fashion. If you walk through a shady neighborhood and you see people that look like they're up to no good, well, you're going to judge that to be a bad neighborhood and something to avoid in the future. If you say something that offends someone to the point where they want to react violently, well, you're going to make the judgment that doing that is a bad idea, and so you're probably going to be more careful about what you say in the future. So all in all, judgments create your perception of reality. It may not be 100% accurate because there's always more involved on the other side, and it will often change your judgment when you learn about the other side. Interpersonal judgments are never permanent. They can always be changed with new information. But all in all, judgments lead to a better and happier life. And finally, what do judgments do to everyone else? Most of the time, they do nothing, because most of the time, people keep their judgments to themselves. Now, there are various ways a person can be affected by judgment. However, since my purpose in talking about this is to help people understand how judgments can be a positive influence, I'm only going to talk about how people should react, not how it is most commonly shown after someone allows their feelings to be hurt from that judgment. First and foremost, I'm not encouraging people to just go out and intentionally hurt people's feelings. Not that I'm against that either, because, sometimes that can be funny, right? Joking. So, when a judgment is made known and you don't like it, you have a couple different options. You either just ignore it, or actually that's the best thing to do, is to ignore it, right? Or you can just tell them, well, we can all have our own opinions, and that's really, if you don't like the judgment, that's really the best thing, the best way to acknowledge that the judgment was made. Now, if a judgment is made known and it changes your perception of yourself, then you need to analyze yourself, which includes taking the time to be by yourself and reflect on everything about yourself. It's also very helpful to talk with friends and get them to tell you all of the positive and negative things that they see about you. And after all of that reflection, if you feel that judgment was correct and you don't like it, then you can change it. See, I have a saying. It's my personal saying. It's absolutely true. See, you can know your friends better than they know themselves, but no one can know you better than you know yourself. Now, if you think about that, that kind of sounds oxymoronic, right? Now, let me explain what I mean by that. You see, there are things about ourselves that no one can ever know about unless we tell them. Feelings that we have, desires, dreams, passions. Nobody can know about these things unless we let them in. So no one knows you better than you know you. Now, the reason I say you can know your friends better than they know themselves, and subsequently they can know you better than you know yourself, is simply because there are mannerisms that each of us have and display that we do not realize until they've been talked about, until we've been told that we have them. They have to be brought up. And that's the only way you can change them, is by becoming aware. In fact, I think that's all I can really say about it. So, in conclusion, I firmly believe that judgments actually lead to a happier and better life. The only thing is required is you need to have a major priority to focus on logic and reason, not on emotion. Because emotion is bad. That's all I could say. I'm not saying that, you can't have emotion and to just completely ignore emotion, because there's always room to allow emotion its time. But you cannot let it overtake your reason, because that leads to the dark side of personal choices. And please, keep all of this in mind and take the time to think about and come up with your own judgments. And honestly, do not be afraid to talk to me about them. Leave your comments. I appreciate them and I welcome them. But you see, the reason why I chose judgment as my first topic is mostly because I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. And, it's all going to be my own opinion. And, well, a lot of people are probably going to be like, oh, why don't judge me. You shouldn't judge people. Well, yes, you should, actually, because that's the only way people can improve themselves. I need people to judge me so that I can improve myself. And that's a very good thing. And it should always be encouraged, not discouraged. But, hey, if you like this video and you think that I had good things to say here, and you found it enlightening, and you enjoyed it, then please help me out so that I can make more videos, so that I can bring more enlightenment, or at least I hope it will be enlightenment. I'm going to try to bring a lot of humor, too. I probably didn't do that so well in this one, but this is my first video, okay? So, bear with me there. Anyway, I have included the link to my GoFundMe page. Go there and donate to that if you would. I would appreciate it. It would help me be able to not have to focus on a lot of other things and still help me survive so that I can put all my time into this. But anyway, this has been your time with Volk, and I wish you all a good day.